Hello, everyone. Ryan Rodriguez here again with another episode of Connecting Keelhaulers. Today, we are joined by Patrick Dackins, MET class of 2017. Patrick, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to share your experiences in your career as well as the time as when you were at Cal Maritime.
No problem.
Patrick currently works as the Assistant Superintendent of the Central Plant for Operations and Maintenance at the UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento. Prior to this role, he was a cogen operator at the medical center, and before that, served as a third assistant engineer with Sea River Maritime, a subsidiary of Exxon. So Patrick, let's start with your current role as assistant superintendent of the plant at the hospital. Now that you've kind of been in that role a couple months, what has that transition been like, and what are some of the new responsibilities that you've gotten in this role?
Yeah, so I moved from a cogen operator up to an assistant superintendent. So we have a management team at the central plant that manages about 13 personnel. That management team has me, another superintendent, and then our senior superintendent kind of manages the entire facility as a whole. My primary responsibility is mostly training operational standards. So I come up with operational procedures or, redoing operational procedures. Especially for a plant that's as old as our plant, and we do many upgrades. Our plant is over 20 years old now, so a lot of upgrading systems. So I had to rewrite procedures that make those changes. I'm also in charge of managing a water treatment program for our plant. So we have a cooling tower. We also have a chill loop and a hot water loop that has to be managed by an outside vendor, but I help manage that aspect and testing.
Gotcha. So then as a cogen operator, because that might be, I know some of our students even intern in kind of those positions and stuff. So what was your typical work like there? And what was the schedule kind of that you kept as a cogen operator?
Yeah, so our plant's a little unique. They do 4-day shifts. So 2 8-hour shifts and 2 12-hour shifts. So it's actually pretty good for work-life balance. You always have 3 days off when you're a cogen operator. The schedule's pretty flexible. Currently, it's a rotating schedule. So every 3 months, you rotate to a different shift. So you might be on weekend days or weekday days, and then you switch to graveyard days and then graveyards. So that's a little bit how the schedule goes for that aspect of the job.
Gotcha. And you were in that for a couple of years after your transition from sailing, right?
Yeah, so about 2.5 years, I was in that position. So about 6 months is what they have the training. We have the training program set up for. So you have a 6-month probation when you start as a cogen operator. Right now, we currently hire cogen operators at a journeyman level. So basically, after the 6 months, you're at a journeyman level. So you need to be at that standard and go from there.
Gotcha. Cool. So then, I know I just mentioned it. So before working at the hospital, you sailed for about a year. What type of vessel did you sail on? What was your route? And then what were your roles on the ship?
So right out of school, I got a job with Sea River Maritime, which is a subsidiary of ExxonMobil. At the time, they had 3 tanker ships, 2 running crude from Valdez down to San Francisco and Long Beach for crude processing. And then they had 1 that was doing distillates, so gasoline, mostly fully refined gasoline from Texas to Florida. That was the American Progress. That's the ship I was on. So right out the gate, got on that ship. And the best part of that was that the ship was going into a shipyard period. So I got that experience right out the gate. But our normal transit was from Texas to Florida and back. So we'd usually come back from Florida empty, and it's only about a 3-day turnaround time. So not too long, voyages out at sea. But when we did the transition, our shipyard period was over in Singapore. So all the way across the Pacific on the other side. So I got that experience, and it was good experience. They flew me out to Singapore. I joined the ship. We spent 72 days in Singapore doing a repair, and then on top of that, sailing all the way back to the West Coast. I got off the ship for my normal relief, and then joined the ship back up about 60 days later.
Gotcha. Cool. So then what made you kind of, because you were there for a year and now you're at UC Davis. So what made you transition shoreside, and then how did you get connected or, kind of connected with UC Davis Medical Center And what was your process in looking for a new job?
Yeah. So we were kind of in a unique situation at Sea River. I joined Sea River back. I actually got hired in February of my senior year, so I kind of had a job all lined up, ready to go. And first started, Sea River is going to last forever. ExxonMobil has been around forever, and about 7 or 8 months into the process, the ExxonMobil decided they were going to sell their assets of the 3 ships that they own to Crowley Maritime. So they sold those ships off to Crowley Maritime, and along with selling those ships off, they said all the officers on board the ships were to go with the ships and join Crowley if you wanted to. So that opportunity presented itself, but at the time I had just had my first child, a daughter, and it was already kind of wanting to come shoreside already. So I thought that was probably a perfect transition. So I ended my career on board the ship with Sea River. So the last day that Sea River owned those ships was the last day I was on board those ships. And then from there, we transitioned to shoreside. So I started looking when I was back on leave from the ship, looked around my area. There's a few power plants that exist around my area. Was able to get a job at a power plant, a 500 megawatt power plant, so much bigger than the current power plant I'm at, fairly easily, interview process and stuff like that. But they wanted me to start right away. Started with them as soon as I got off the ship, I think 2 days later after I got off the ship, and was there for about 6 or 7 weeks. And then UC Davis had called. I had always put in applications everywhere, and UC Davis had called me and asked if I wanted to come and interview. At that time, the 500 megawatt plant was good, but the people were really good there, but management style was not what I was accustomed to and not what I was looking for in a career path, especially for someone who's starting my career and wanted to continue on in my career. So kind of moved on from there, and UC Davis called me, did the interview process, and they were the ones that offered me a job much closer to my house, only 15 minutes away from my house, where the other power plant was. Yeah, the other power plant was about an hour in the morning and about an hour and a half in the evening when I would have to come home.
Gotcha.
So it was an easy transition that way. So fairly simple and straightforward. Putting your resume out there, I think the biggest key for applying for those types of jobs, especially shoreside, is make sure you show relevance on how your experience transfers to shoreside. So, and especially anything that says requirement on an application in the application area, you want to make sure that you have something for every one of those things, even if it says I have experience with, and then elaborate on each one of those things, because there's so many times now that I'm in the management team, there's so many times when people are missing just 1 or 2 things off the requirement area, even though from their experience they had to have had that experience. So that's one of the big things that you need to make sure
you guys want to see it explicitly stated on there.
Yeah, it's explicitly stated is the best way to do it, because that way a lot of times when you're evaluating candidates, especially for just trying to weed the candidates down, you kind of make a list of, how many requirements did they hit? If they hit 5 of the requirements, then we can accept everybody. But now we have to accept everybody who has 5 requirements. But if you match them all, then most likely you're going to get a call back, at least for a phone screening.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's actually a good point, because I'll talk with some students who are like, do I really need to put like Microsoft Excel on my, and I'm like, yes, like it's on there for a reason. Don't think, everybody has it, so it's not going to make me stand out. It's like, I think that's a good point right there from the hiring side, is like, you guys are looking for this to weed through candidates and stuff and help you make those decisions.
And the best part is, me and one of my other managers is a Cal Maritime alum, and he knows that I have some of the, when he hired me, he knows that I have some of this experience that I had missed on putting the requirement aspect on. So, making sure that you include all those things is, the most important part, and making sure that you get seen to the next level, at least in the hiring process.
Got you. One thing you mentioned that I think I want to touch on just a little bit is, first, you said making sure that you're translating that experience. So if you were sailing and transition to shoreside, making sure that you talk about those relevant things. So what did you find and now in your role, what do you see as relevant that these licensed track students who do want to transition shoreside should be highlighting in resumes or interviews or cover letters or whatever it may be?
Well, I think, sometimes you'll run into plants like the first power plant that I applied for and got a subsequent job for. They had only had one Cal Maritime grad come through there, and they hadn't had a lot of licensed tracked people come through there. So a lot of times you walk into an interview and you might have to re-explain what a licensed track is or what your degree is actually in. So making sure that you explain, well, how your degree is relevant to what they want, especially in an operator's standpoint, because as a Cal Maritime grad right out of school, most likely you can get hired on as an operator, at least an operator apprentice, and being able to say, oh, look, I can look at a PNID, I can look at a system drawing. I've done system tracing throughout my career at Cal Maritime, 4 years at Cal Maritime. I was able to operate a ship, by myself. I was, licensed engine room operator. I, helped the engine room out and stuff like that, and showing relevance, and then listing every single system, because a lot of these power plants have a lot of the same systems that we have on board ships, and making sure you list out those things. Oh, what do you use for cooling? Oh, we use, seawater for heat exchangers. Oh, okay. It's all, pertinent. And sometimes if you're experiencing people that don't know what, Cal Maritime is, or especially what, even shipboard engine rooms are like, it's completely different.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then also with your license, did you see that when you're transitioning shoreside, was that a requirement on, or either a requirement or a preferred qualification on applications, or did you see that kind of helping you out in your job search process?
I think it probably helped out a lot in the jobs search process. At least it was, relevance that, I have a government agency license, saying like, and people would always ask, well, what's that mean? And you go into, I have to take 8 tests. It's all predicated on, having all the STCW requirements. So every time I was in school, the requirements to transitioned over, and the amount of sea time that you have to have, going into the cruises, whether it be your freshman cruise, commercial cruise, or even all the way up to your senior cruise, where, that's kind of how things stand out. And I think that definitely helps, with certifications. I know in different states, they actually require, and some counties actually require like a STEAM license, and stuff like that is maybe something that you could work towards and stuff like that. And I know a few operators that have done that, and then, within 6 months they have to get their STEAM license and stuff like that.
Gotcha. So commercial cruise, I think that always kind of speaks for itself, how it sets you up going post-graduation and stuff. But I was also noticing on like your LinkedIn profile and stuff that you did a lot of on-campus jobs and had a lot of campus involvement while at Cal Maritime. So how did those different things kind of set you up post-graduation for just jobs and things of that nature?
Well, I think being part of the Corps really stood out, especially to a lot of my job employers, and especially with ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil, throughout the years, they only take about 5 or 6 candidates of 600 or 700 candidates, and the interview process was pretty intense. It's a phone interview, and then they fly me out to Houston, and then sit in a panel of 10 people from ExxonMobil that are all grilling you on questions and stuff like that. But a lot of relevance goes back to how you manage other people, how you interact with people. Interpersonal skills are a huge aspect, because the knowledge base, they know that you have a license, they know that you have the skills to do that job, but they really care about building a team. And at least with ExxonMobil and a lot of companies that are hiring Cal Maritime grads are looking for people to take the next step and maybe become a manager at one point, and take the next step and be in a leadership role inside their company. And it's explained to me when I was at ExxonMobil that it costs roughly $600,000 when it's all said and done to train me from a new hire all the way through. That's paying everybody's salary to weed the candidates away and everything like that. So their company is making a huge investment in you initially when they hire you, and they want to make sure that that investment's going to pay off. So my campus involvement was, I was the cadet chief engineer for basically starting the mid part of my junior year all the way up until through cruise, and then continuing on through my senior year, help with training program and stuff like that. Another big aspect was clubs and associations. I was part of the Society of Port Engineers group. So, every month there's a dinner. I don't know how it works now with COVID, but probably not the same way. But every
Unfortunately,
month, every month there was a dinner where you get to meet, people from Exxon, people from Chevron, all these people that are in the industry, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area. And the Society of Port Engineers really supports at least the MET program at Cal Maritime, and they really, try to elevate everybody up. And they sponsor the cadets, 5 or 6 cadets to come to these dinners. They're really nice dinners at really fancy restaurants in San Francisco, and you get to sit at tables and mingle with people that are asking you questions. Some are Cal Maritime grads, some are from SUNY, some are from different maritime colleges, and some are work their way up from the bottom. But there are a lot of port engineers in there, and a lot of superintendents that run yards and stuff like that. And then another club I was involved with was AFE, which is the Association of Facilities Engineers, which is a good aspect to be part of. They have an annual trip. I don't know if they'll probably do it this next year. But,
yeah, it was like going to be early March last year and it ended up getting canceled. I know it didn't happen this year because I was actually bummed because I was like new to Cal Maritime last year, and I was going to go on that trip down to Santa Clara, and I was like, oh, this is going to be sweet. I'm going to get to like learn, kind of see firsthand. And it was like right at the start of COVID. It's like, yeah, we're not going to do the in-person thing. I was like, dang. But
So yeah, I participated in that for 2 years, and it was really good experience. Ryan Stores, who was part of the program, he really pushes cadets to get out there and show their relevance towards facilities engineering. So great experience. I got to go to Lockheed Martin 1 year, and I think another year I went to a server a facility. But Lockheed Martin was cool. You get to see what the people do from the facilities engineering part. The customers are obviously different programs. So, they might be working on top secret stuff, but they might need a clean room to do something. So, you get all these clearances, you get to see where, spacecraft are built and stuff like that. So, every part of it is something to be involved with.
Cool. Yeah, no, definitely those networking opportunities and just seeing a bunch of different things while you're in school is a great way to kind of envision the future for sure. So I know you are a more non-traditional age cadet. So what kind of got you interested in marine engineering technology and going back to school? And then what advice would you give to the non-traditional cadets as they go through Cal Maritime? Any advice or anything like that?
I wasn't non-traditional. I was a transfer student. So I got out of high school in 2005. Did community college kind of part-time, but also worked a full-time job as a delivery driver. And then got to a point in my career as a delivery driver where I was like, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. And I felt like I was kind of spinning my wheels. My younger sister, who's 4 years younger than me, actually started at Cal Maritime at that time. And I'd always, known about Cal Maritime before, but then when I started looking into it, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm pretty mechanical, pretty good with my hands and stuff like that. So kind of focused up, went back to community college, got all my math out of the way, took some intro to engineering courses there, and kind of realized, oh, this is kind of what I want to come in with. So I actually transferred into Cal Maritime as an ME student, so ME licensed track student. And I got here, and after the first semester, I kind of realized, oh, you know what? I want to be in MET. I want to be more in the operational side of engineering. Not that there's anything wrong with the design side, but I wanted to be kind of doing the operational side. So I kind of transferred over to the MET program and was able to do that at the time. I know that's probably restricted now, or transferring between is a little harder, but and just flourished in that program. It took me the full 4 years. I did transfer in with, I think I transferred in with 72 credits, but a lot of that was all general or math. So kind of reduced my load for the first 2.5 years, which was good because it kind of eases you into how strict and, taking 20 units, taking 23 units. For me as a transfer student, that worked out best for me.
Gotcha. Yep, no doubt. What about now? I know you don't sail anymore. You did for a little bit. What's one thing you miss about sailing? And then what's one thing you love about your job right now?
I think the thing I miss the most about sailing is probably time off. the time off is awesome
Yeah,
when you're
that's
sailing
I've
because
gathered that talking to a lot of sailors. Like, man, that does sound
yeah,
nice.
so the time off is nice, but it does have the flip side of that is you're stuck on board the ship. And
Mhm.
my route wasn't too bad, with 3 days on, 3 days off, and they were pretty liberal about, if you, as long as your work was done, you could get off the ship for maybe an hour or two or something like that. But I had a different experience. I was on a tanker ship, so it's not like you can go out and go to the bar or something and come back to the ship. That's not allowed.
Mhm.
But that's an aspect I kind of miss. And then operationally wise, on a ship, it's there's a job to do every single day, and the first engineer really dictates what you're going to do for the day. You have PMs and stuff like that, but or responding to emergencies and stuff like that is something that was always fun, and doing casualty control and that aspect of the job is good. But I think that's something I do miss about sailing is the time off, and when you're on board, you're on board. So there's nothing else going on.
Yep.
You do your 12 hours down in the engine room, you come up, you eat, and then you go take a nap or you go sleep, and then you start the whole day over and everything like that. And then, but it's hard on the family, especially
Mhm.
having a young daughter. My wife, I actually missed the birth of my first child because we were out at sea, in the middle Pacific. So that was a big aspect that was like kind of drawing me away from
Mhm.
this sailing aspect, and kind of want to coming shoreside.
Gotcha. That actually, what you just mentioned about missing your daughter's birth is something I was talking with a couple mariners last week, and how they kind of handle, just from like more like the mental well-being of like missing these milestones and stuff. So just how did you guys kind of go about that? And I know
It
because
was
that's got to be tough for sure.
yeah. Oh yeah, it was tough. I mean, she came early,
Mhm.
21 days early actually.
Gotcha.
And so we were actually transitioning back from Singapore back to the West Coast. And, we still had 21 days. She came 21 days early. And we were still like, I think 3 days away from the West Coast. So there's nothing that, we could control.
Mhm.
I know I probably emotionally it was probably harder on my wife
Yep.
than it was on me. But on that aspect, the Exxon really treated their engineers and especially the people on board their ships, first class. So we had high speed internet. I was able to watch the birth live on my phone. And that was another aspect that's like, oh, wow, at least, I had this and was
Mhm.
able to share in that moment. So mentally, at least I wasn't not
Yeah.
there, that I was actually there. So that helped out a lot.
Gotcha. Prepared you for
But
the
it's
pandemic.
definitely yeah, it's definitely straining though
Mhm.
on a when you're looking at that part of it.
Yep, I'm sure. And then now, just closing with a couple things. First, what is something now working at UC Davis that you really enjoy in your role as assistant superintendent?
Yeah, I mean, I think the plan is kind of on the older side. It's about 20 years old, but having the reliability that we do, we have a LM 2500 that we provide power to the hospital. So we have basically three sources of power for the hospital. We have emergency generators, we have our power plant, which is an LM 2500, and then we also have a connection to the local utility down here. So three sources of power is a huge aspect, but uh, plant's 20 years old, so a lot of upgrades are happening throughout the plant. And so it's kind of getting to retrofit an entire plant, which is a huge aspect, and kind of learning new systems, trying to decide, being part of the team that's going to help decide what the future of that plant looks like in the next 20 years, which I hope to be there in another 20 years and being able to see those aspects of the plant's evolution. I mean, the plant started in 97, and, hearing all the stories about all the equipment that's in there now. And then now they're building even bigger towers. They're building a 14-story tower to replace a bunch of towers. So there's a lot of improvements coming down the line, and being a part of that, and then helping make the plant more efficient. And being green and sustainable is definitely on the higher level of things now. And how a central plant and how supplying the central utilities to a campus that has 30 plus buildings and supports a hospital that it's a level 1 trauma center is a huge aspect, because people need to have their surgeries and they need to have reliable power all the time. And you can't have any outages. You can't black out the hospital at any point. And, that's a big aspect. So it's challenging, but it's also being able to see that process through is exciting.
Nice, nice. With it being spring now, I always feel a little obligated to ask. For I don't know how if you guys do internships at the medical center or not, like in plant ops, or even new grad hires, or kind of what at the medical center, kind of what would be that process if you're looking, or if you just kind of do that in general.
Yeah, as of right now, we haven't had anybody intern at the program. Right now, our biggest aspect is trying to get our staff fully staffed. So since I've been there almost 3 years, we've never been fully staffed except for one day when we had a full staff. And then, of course, the guy got there and it's something he didn't realize about the facility, and then he quit the next day, and so then we became not fully staffed. So the most important part right now is getting us fully staffed. But
Gotcha.
Me and my other manager have talked about in the future setting up an internship program, setting up a path, an apprenticeship program to be able to transition people from zero knowledge, or maybe Cal Maritime knowledge, or some level of trade school, all the way up to a full-blown operator. There's some challenges coming up. The cogen operators just last 6 months have unionized, so they're now in a union. So there's another aspect that has to be addressed. But going forward, I think that we're open to that, and that's something that we're going to try to move forward to. But getting everybody hired on, getting a full staff is the top priority for us, at least, right? Yeah.
Gotcha. And if somebody did want to apply or was interested, where would they go? Just on your guys' website, jobs posted there?
UC Davis Health is where we normally post all our jobs. That's exterior candidates can find them through UC Davis Health. Right now, I think we might be fully staffed after this next hiring process, but we do have a lot of people there that have worked there for 20 years, so some are getting very close to retirement. That's a big aspect, is that as a new grad, and especially as someone even was in the industry and now trying to move to different industries, is always checking, setting a reminder weekly to check up and everything like that. Because now seeing on the other side that job postings can last like less than 3 or 4 days, and being able to check every week to make sure that the job is posted and stuff like that is a huge aspect, and not relying solely on like LinkedIn or solely on another job website to give you all the information. Because sometimes you'll see it on another job posting, then you'll click into it, and then it's like, oh no, this closed a week ago. Yeah, it closed a week ago, so it doesn't apply to me. But UC Davis Health is where we post our jobs, and there's 4 other campuses in the UC system that also have cogen. So that's a big aspect that people want to look around, and especially in different areas. UCLA has one. Berkeley has a cogen. It's managed by a different company, so you'll see postings out. But I think the resource that I used the most when I was in school was my faculty members. Ryan Storrs was a huge aspect on being able to share any information, share about when he knew about job postings. And even when I got my job at ExxonMobil, and job interview at ExxonMobil, I reached out and found one of my faculty members knew someone who worked at Sea River, and that was a huge aspect. And being able to reach out to that person and contact them and say, hey, how was the interview process? What should I expect? What should I be prepared for? And he just told it to me straight, what they were looking for and everything like that. So using your faculty members is a huge aspect and a huge time save, especially for new candidates. And even after I've graduated, keeping in touch with those faculty members and sending them an email, they always respond back. And that's what I got to say about the MET program. They're top notch. Everybody has been.
Nice. Yeah, use that network any way you can, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely, for sure. Well, Patrick, that's all that I have. Any last closing thoughts to touch on before we close up?
No, I think we covered a lot of good things, and wish everybody luck out there in the job field, and as a Cal Maritime grad, I've never had a problem finding a job, and every interview I've gone on, I've gotten the job. But being honest and trying to be humble too is a big aspect of, especially when you start a new job. Even coming on board a ship, you graduate, you have a degree, you've got your Coast Guard license, but also being humble when you come aboard that ship. Some people on board a ship have been there for 15 years and they know the ins and outs of that ship up and down, but showing your willingness to learn and don't overstep your bounds. And then even coming to a cogen operator on shore side was another aspect where you kind of learn your place and know where you stand, and make sure that you ask inquisitive questions is a big thing, and ask why we do this way, and don't think, oh, we should do it this different way. It's like, no, you just came in, you need to kind of learn the system before you start telling them how to run their plant and stuff like that is a big aspect that I see a lot of people come in from just my last 3 years that have come in and said, oh, you should do it this way, and then it's like, oh, what, you were just here a week.
Yeah,
What are you
we
doing?
do it this way for a certain reason or something. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for a certain reason and stuff like that.
Totally. Well, Patrick, thank you very much. Cadets, if you want to reach out, we'll link to his LinkedIn profile, so you can reach out if you have any questions or want to talk more about what he does or so on and so forth. But yeah, Patrick, thank you for taking some time out of your day and joining us and answering some questions.
No problem.